Hey guys, it's Nat from Nat's Numbers. I'm also known as the Numerology Chick over on Instagram. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing what numerology is, where in the heck it came from, whether it's a science or not, which is kind of an interesting philosophical discussion, and why it could be the answer to your prayers if you're feeling lost and confused right now. So I haven't posted a video in a really long time here on my YouTube channel. I think it's been like 3 or 4 years. So if you want to see more content, please make sure to subscribe, like this video, share it with friends and family. My plan is to post a new video every Friday to help give you the wisdom and the spiritual power that you need with the help of the numbers. So now let's dive into the content of this video. What is numerology all about? Listen, I'm going to be really honest. When I first got into this field, and I've been a numerologist for about a decade, the definitions that were out there were really confusing and they're kind of a turnoff. You go and Google what is numerology, and a common definition that you'll get is that it's the belief that numbers hold some sort of mystical power, that they can predict like future events and things of that nature. And this is not at all the definition of numerology, and unfortunately it doesn't even do it justice. So here's my definition, okay? Numerology is based on 2 fundamental premises. Premise number 1 is that numbers are the fingerprints of God. Numbers are the fingerprints of a divine intelligence, a divine architect behind existence. Numbers are not like human inventions. They are placeholders for describing fundamental patterns within the universe. So that's why, for instance, in 1974, there was a radio transmission that was sent out into the cosmos to communicate with possible, other intelligent life. And it wasn't sent out in words, it wasn't sent out in music, it was sent out in numbers, because their thought process was no matter where you go in the cosmos, no matter what planet you're on, what solar system you're in, no matter what galaxy you're in, 1 + 1 is always going to equal 2. Okay, that numbers are the language of the universe. Now you might say, no, 1 + 1 wouldn't equal 2 if you were in another place, because maybe they don't even have numbers. Okay, maybe they don't even have those same symbols. Hey, they might have different symbols, but 1 + 1 always equals 2. Okay, you go anywhere in this whole universe and the concept of 1 will always be there. The first thing that pops out of the void is always a circle. It's always a cell. It's always a container. A container has to exist for life to exist. Okay? These are fundamental principles. These are not channelings. These are not just things that I've like pulled out of thin air, in meditation. We're talking about observing fundamental patterns within the universe, right? The number 2 is something that would exist no matter where you go. The thing that represents 2 items or 2 things coming together, union, bond, connection, the energy that holds atoms together. Do you get the picture? Okay, so numbers are the fundamental patterns in the universe. Numbers are the fingerprints or the language of God. That's the first premise. The second premise is that the numbers then that are derived from your birth name and birth date are no accident. The numbers that are encoded in your birth name and birth date can help describe how your creator, how this infinite intelligence or architect designed you, how it designed you to be happy and to be successful and to be who you were meant to be, okay? So those are the basic 2 premises of this work. But where did it come from? Where did this hippy dippy trippy tradition come from? You'd be surprised at actually how hard it is to answer this question. It's kind of like asking, where did math come from? Because they're very intricately linked. Our understanding that numbers, equations, algorithms can describe the inner and outer workings of our universe, it's evolved. It's emerged over the course of time. Some numerologists say that this tradition goes back 10,000 years, but a real big sort of turning point when it became more mainstream or more famous was 2,500 years ago, because of the Greek mathematician Pythagoras, who was like a super interesting guy. He was an eccentric dude. He was sort of like a famous guy that everybody knew in Greek society. He had his own like brotherhood, his own school, and he was famous. And one of the things that he really popularized was that numbers weren't just quantities. Numbers were were placeholders, were labels for describing fundamental patterns within the universe, how things work. Okay? Now listen, I get the question a lot of, is numerology a science? And I want to address this really quick because it's a cool topic. It depends on your definition of science. So if science to you is the attainment of knowledge through, experience and like tried and true experiments, then you could say to a certain degree that then numerology is a science because it persists, now. It's accurate, it's uncanny. People can get clarity on who they are and their purpose within, 20 minutes in a session. It is here because it works, because it's useful, because it's been incredibly accurate. But if you are asking that question in the way that most people are, is that science is the definition, the attainment of knowledge through the scientific method, like the concept of having a hypothesis and then testing the hypothesis and then getting like some kind of result the same every single time, then the answer is absolutely no. And I want to address why. This is very, very important when we're diving into these like esoteric things. Whenever we're talking about decoding God, whenever we're diving into the esoteric, the spiritual, the metaphysical, it's very difficult to use the scientific method. And you might say, that's because these things aren't true. No. In fact, there's incredible mathematicians that have been putting out proofs through math to prove that if there was something that was unlimited, omnipresent, omnipotent, like God, it would literally be impossible to understand, wrap our minds around, and observe and create an equation with that thing. So something that's beyond us, that's bigger than us, that we're swimming in, we cannot become the observers, the objective observers of. So whenever we're talking about spirituality, we can't go there. We can't go to the place of, yeah, prove it, right? You can't. It's the beauty of this work. It's the beauty of this tradition. It's why I love what I do, because you know what? There are no end all be all answers when we're talking about the ultimate mystery of existence. So there's that. There's a second reason though why the scientific method doesn't work that's even more fascinating to me. And this is kind of where I'm going to be explaining why previous definitions of numerology aren't altogether accurate. So you would think that if this was a science, I could tell you that because of the numbers in your chart, I could tell you what your future is. Okay. I could tell you exactly what you're going to do tomorrow, right? No, of course I can't. No numerologist can. And if there's anybody that you ever run into that's telling your future, that's telling you what's going to happen, run for the hills, okay? The reason why is because one of the greatest gifts that we were given by the great beyond was the gift of free will, which means that we can wake up every morning and we can decide what we do with our focus, with our energy, with our thoughts, with our hands. We can decide to do whatever we want. Numerology doesn't predict your future. Numerology doesn't tell you what your destiny is. Your numerology tells you how you were designed by your creator. It tells you what your gifts are, what your calling is, but you get to decide what you want to do with that. Now, with the scientific method, if you want the same result every single time, free will can't be there. Do you see what I'm saying? So these are the two reasons why, with the definition of science being the scientific method, why numerology is not a science. And there's nothing that is metaphysical, mystical, spiritual that could ever be because of these two principles. Okay, so now that we covered that, let's dive into why numerology has such a heyday right now, why it's becoming such a big deal. Why do I make a living doing this? Why do people come to me and they're consulting me on their numbers? I get asked this question a lot at dinner parties and things like that. So listen, we live in a world where we are focused on pleasing and adhering to the expectations first of our caregivers or parents, of our teachers, of our friend group, of our boss, of our spouse, fill in the blank. And what ends up happening in this machine of our lives, where we just go from one relationship, one job, one stage of our life to the next, is that we never actually have a moment to presence ourselves. We never have a moment to actually find out what sets us apart, what makes us unique, etc. Okay? Numerology is the fastest and most effective way that I've found to do that, to come back home and to honor the way that you were designed. In your core numerology chart, there's some fascinating things that we can decode. One of them is your purpose, like your calling. Like, what are you here to do? What will give you fulfillment and satisfaction in this life? Another thing that we can decode are your gifts. Like, what are the primary gifts that you have to give? Do you know how painful it is for someone to have a set of gifts and they are in an environment or a relationship or a career where those gifts are not expressed or they're not received? No, it's not okay. Another thing that we can unearth is what's called your heart's desire. So it's like a hidden desire, oftentimes repressed initially. And you need this for rocket fuel. You could be living your purpose, you could be being you and expressing your gifts, but if you are not receiving this fundamental need, you're going to feel like you're starving. And another aspect of your chart is called your attraction factor, and this is what tells us what makes you truly magnetic, what makes you truly attractive, how you bring and pull people into your life. So this is just a sampling, right? Imagine if you could learn those things about yourself. How amazing would that be? It would mean that you would go from possibly being a doormat to being somebody that's confident, standing tall and proud in who you are. It would mean that you would go from being a follower to a leader of your own life. It would mean that instead of being invisible or sort of yielding to everyone else in your life, that you develop your own skin, your own sense of self, that you become your own best friend, and that you can finally be the person that you want to be and create the life that you want to create. Okay? All right, so if you have any other questions about numerology, about your chart, anything else that you want me to make a video on as I move forward, creating more content for this program, please leave the comments below. I appreciate you guys so much, and I cannot wait to see you in the next video. Bye.